I was writing a paper on the PC, and then it was all like, hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. And today I'm going to get my butt kicked for science. I think this is a good way to show off a lesson. So recently there was this Reddit post being like, hey, Curse players, what are you doing to keep up in the metagame? And I just immediately fired off a response like, you don't, you play a different deck. Because I legitimately think that is the correct answer. Mono black decks, or maybe black decks with a slight splash for something like a Fury or something of that nature, are legitimately strong in Legacy right now. But they are strong because of the speed. Grief, pitch some black card, reanimate, strips 2 cards from your opponent's hand on turn 1 while creating a Delver of Secrets sized body. Dark Ritual, cycle Troll of Khazad-dûm, reanimate it, maybe throw a Thoughtseize into the mix too, puts your opponent on roughly a 3-turn clock, assuming some fetch lands or something else gets involved. So, the question I then ask you is, why would you play a 5-mana card that does nothing the turn that it comes into play? And the answer is, you shouldn't do that. Now, of course, I am going to do that. Do as I say, not as I do. People bribe me to do weird things on the internet. So what do you do with a Curse of Misfortunes? Because if you haven't been playing Legacy for a long time, you might not be too familiar with this deck list. The goal is to play sort of a control prison game and grind your opponent to dust with a pile of overcosted curses. Maybe the most iconic of those being Cruel Reality. At the beginning of Enchanted player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. If that player can't, they lose 5 life. So the idea is that this turns into a 4-turn clock, and a lot of times, once you've had a Curse of Misfortunes around for a turn or two, your opponent's creatures are completely invalid. And let's bring up the full deck list here to show why. The general idea is that you fetch up Overwhelming Splendor to make all of your opponent's creatures 1/1s and make them lose all of their abilities, and then you stick the Curse of Death's Hold to give all of their 1/1 creatures -1, -1. So turn 1, creatures are small. Turn 2, all creatures are dead forever. And turn 3, you Cruel Reality. You start picking off anything that's left over for some weird reason, like say +1/+1 counters. You start getting rid of planeswalkers and killing your opponent. You are hoping to do so by hiding behind an Ensnaring Bridge, and you can fish Ensnaring Bridge out of the sideboard with Karn the Great Creator. The problem is that this deck isn't playing all that many good cards, and I say that respectfully. Like, this deck is very light on singularly powerful cards, which is something Legacy is about right now. Your Murktides, Uros, Griefs, Reanimates, Trolls, Initiative Creatures, Sticker Goblins, Muxus, Broadside. Whereas we're much more of a A+B deck. Like, we kind of need Ensnaring Bridge or equivalent, like say Chalice of the Void for a combo matchup, to let us buy the time to get to these larger overcosted cards. And while we do have some amount of acceleration in this deck, there is going to be real tension between the colorless sources that provide utility in this deck list and the black, sometimes black pips required to cast our cards. So let's hop into some matches and see exactly how this deck feels. I don't expect it to be good, but hopefully we get to relive a little bit of that nostalgia of back when Reaplecheap and others were grinding with this deck list. And if we happen to do well today and you like what you see, please consider checking out Cool Stuff Inc. and using promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your next order. Let's battle. And by the way, thank you to Matthew for giving me a dealer's choice donation deck list to give Curses another spin. 1 mana source is not going to cut it. 1 mana source is not going to cut it. Okay, what are we doing here? This is a weird hand because I'm funneled in this Urza Saga direction with these cards, but then there is this whole Ensnaring Bridge thing going on that becomes increasingly better on a mulligan. I kind of want to keep these. This is 5 mana for curses, and I can like do something like bridge into Karn or just turn 2 natural Karn, use that as a bait for a counter spell. Um, this makes me uncomfortable. I can maybe like not keep the Karn and keep the Urza Saga, but like keeping Urza Saga while trying to go in on bridge is a little weird. All right, what am I doing with my life? I think I'm going to play Ancient Tomb and pass, and next turn I can play an Ensnaring Bridge around a daze. I can just jam a Karn. I don't care if I get Wastelanded. Yeah, I don't mind that. We're chilling. Do I have a 1 mana Karn tutor target? Not well, I guess technically. I'm not excited about a Brainstone. I think I'm just going to go Swamp pass here. Feels like we're playing against some flavor of Delver. So the long-term plan is stick an Ensnaring Bridge. I can Dark Ritual Dalthy Voidwalker into Ensnaring Bridge. Dalthy Voidwalker's not good enough to get a counterspell. And then the Ensnaring Bridge is dazable. But those spells in some order is the way that I use 5 mana in this turn cycle. Let's go for the Dalthy. And I'm going to throw this Ensnaring Bridge into a counterspell with the actual hope of resolving one off of this later. Yeah, that's fine. My opponent didn't just bolt Dalthy Voidwalker in response, though, so that's nice. I have some hopes of keeping this as a 1-1, which is a big deal. Like, if this stays for a few turns and decreases the amount of damage that I take and makes it so that Murktide Regent comes into play later on in the game, like, that is a big win for me. I might be eating, like, a Molten Collapse here. Is that the name of that card? Yeah, there we go. All right, so the Junka Days... I take 1. We're hoping for no like Force of Will or equivalent for the Ensnaring Bridge. That's a terrible draw. And a strong reason to not play a deck that looks like this one. So I'll immediately minus. I'm interested in the bridge. Some awkwardness here, as Cruel Reality is sticking in my hand basically forever. I'll have to check whether or not I have Chrome Mox. I think I have 1. I think I have... No, it's a Mox Opal and a Lotus Petal. That's not the best. Okay, so is this Surveil going to make DRC a 3/3? Right, Molten Collapse is a sorcery. Yeah, so sorcery, land, creature, instant. The Brainstorm will. So I lose this. Hopefully Ensnaring Bridge resolves. My opponent just got a couple of cantrips to try to keep it from resolving. Yeah, again, this is why you don't play this deck. You have a decent number of non-castable cards. And even if this does resolve, I am in danger of just drawing the Overwhelming Splendor and never actually being able to get out from under my Ensnaring Bridge, realistically. I don't have black to cast this, for example. That is the Force of Will. Another Daze as well. Curse of Death's Hold is okay against some things like Bowmasters, but the damage is probably done, and I've probably lost this game. I think a Wasteland kills me, a Murktide Regent kills me, a second DRC kills me. Life's bad. Seems like Murktide is coming. Yep. Good God. That is a colorless land currently. So I get attacked for 7, 10, 11. I go to 1. Ancient Tomb doesn't tap for mana anymore. Ensnaring Bridge isn't a realistic out. Because Lightning Bolt and Bowbasters both kill me. And I'm going to have stuff trapped in my hand. I'm fine tossing in the towel there. So Karn sucks. Like, it is just exceptionally slow in this matchup. I probably try to board this out. I board in the extra Ensnaring Bridge. I board in the Sholdreds that help me to stabilize. And I'll probably just play 1 extra mana source. The Brainstone becomes pretty bad versus Bowmasters. I'll probably board that out. Play 1 more Helm. That's an okay configuration. I think despite the fact that I am a Leyline of the Void deck, I am going to be a dog in this matchup. So I don't have black for Dalthy Voidwalker. which means I can't do like Voidwalker Helm. This one is a mulligan based on the colored mana pips. This hand does not have black mana. Is it redeemable? Turn 1, Ancient Tomb, Chalice of the Void, Mox Opal. Turn 2, Ensnaring Bridge. Mox Opal gets turned on, allows me to Curse of Misfortunes. I am not happy with this. I don't think I'm going to go to 5 trying to fish for a Leyline hand, though. Alright, let's Chalice. Immediately met with the Force of Will. That means my Mox Opal is no longer going to contribute black mana towards this curse, which is kind of a huge deal. I sure don't have black pips for this. I hate this. I need to use my mana. I think if I don't, my opponent just ends up in an overwhelmingly strong position. At some point, I will play out Mox Opal. My opponent is going to have answers to this bridge, be that like a Meltdown, Brazen Borrower. I cannot get too cocky here. Also, I can't cast any black cards that I draw, so there is a good chance that my Ensnaring Bridge doesn't actually help me stop things like DRC. Yeah, like that's a great example. And we're chilling. This does not help me in any capacity. I'm not even sure that I should play it. Opponent could like flash in an end of turn Brazen Borrower and just start attacking me. I'm going to keep this in hand for 1 turn. I would prefer not to take a bunch of extra damage. Like, this does not cost me life. Okay. That's fine. My opponent can intentionally not flip this and attack under Ensnaring Bridge. Thank you, deck. Very cool. I think at this point I just let this go in hopes of drawing a black land and starting to get some of this stuff out of my hand. I'm going to take so much damage from my own cards. Yeah, so there's the intentional no flip. I take 1. That's awful for me. Well, that helps. That means that I can at least deploy this card. Yep. And then hopefully I draw another soul land. I can drop a Curse of Misfortune and do cool stuff with that. Yeah, but like this is a great example. Like this is turn 6. My Ensnaring Bridge is not stopping a 3-power flyer from getting through. Another Delver. Sure. My opponent can keep 1 unflipped. That is another uncastable card. Cool, cool, cool. I am just going to take 6 here. And there's a meltdown. All right, we're dead. Just my deck does not function without proper mana. And this is turn 7, and I had 4 uncastable cards in hand with another one that I held for a considerable amount of time as well.
Looking to run a great CADH event? Having hosted over 100 successful tournaments, Eminence Gaming has your back with Command Tower. With its intuitive tournament manager dashboard, you can handle everything from decklist submission to player management in just a few clicks. Then, all players need to do is scan a generated QR code to have access to your full tournament bracket. Put your players first with seamless pairing software and real-time access to standings. Take the guesswork out of tournaments. Give Command Tower a try for your next event.
Right, we are playing against Cyrus Cormangill, who is a known Storm pilot. I can go turn 2 Grim Monolith, turn 3 Curse, but that doesn't really do a lot to stop Storm stuff. Take a quick look at my deck list. So I want a Chalice of the Void or a Karn the Great Creator in my opening hand for whatever my opponent is likely to be playing, or both. Both is good. We'll get rid of the Curse. So my goal is Chalice on 0 on turn 1. Okay. Dauthi Voidwalker on turn 2. Hopefully Karn turn 3 or turn 4. Never didn't have it. I think I am going to stop artifact mana here, despite the fact that I do have some artifact mana in my own deck. Like, I can try to wait a turn to shut off rituals. Sure, that's fine. because like the Karns will eventually shut off the artifact mana, but I think I need this as a bridge to the Karns. And I don't kind of know exactly what configuration Cyrus is going to be playing, but, well, that's a reason to not shut off rituals, right? So I will Karn. Do I have a 1-drop worth playing here? I'm going to want to get a Trinisphere next turn. Could put a Brainstone into play. I think I am going to just go ahead and minus and put another land into my hand and call it a turn. Then I think once I have Trinisphere, I can just kind of win the game however. And we'll see if we lose to a string of rituals here. Like Dark Rit, Cabal Rit, Tutor probably goes somewhere meaningful. If Cyrus is on some sort of Beseech build, we're keeping artifacts out of play potentially. Okay, that is a Beseech. My opponent did not bargain. Let's minus this. Yes. I'm going to pick up the Trinisphere and drop the Trinisphere into play. Now, for those of you who haven't been playing with Trinisphere, since you were weaned off your mother's milk, as long as Trinisphere is untapped, it works. If we were to, say, animate Karn, turn Trinisphere into a creature, I could shut off its ability. Oh, we're going? A small number of goblins. Understood. I can Karn plus on my Trinisphere, turn it into a creature. Yeah. This just makes this a relevant blocker. My opponent can attack in. I block one of these. This Karn dies. Then I can play a new Karn the following turn. Karn minus, or maybe Karn plus on Trinisphere again. This is fine. Cyrus just typed attack in the chat. Sorry, Cyrus, I'm scared. Okay, yeah, that's fair. All right, opposition agent, reasonable, Sholdred, reasonable. I could bring the Trinisphere in directly since Karn in play is already kind of a kick in the teeth. My Ensnaring Bridges get to go out. I'm not like the most excited about Curse of Death's Hold here. What does this shut off again? Enchanted player can't activate abilities that aren't mana abilities or loyalty abilities. So this, in theory, shuts off something like Wishclaw Talisman if my opponent is playing it, which I'm not sure if they are yet. Let's get this in, then find a way to get those in as well. That would be 3 more cuts. I don't hate taking this out and this out anyway. I'm not really sure that I have time for this. This plays a Leyline on turn 0, but then has no ability to cast any spells in my hand. I'm going to mulligan this one. If no discard spell, this is turn 1 Trinisphere. This hand is totally fine. I have 0 black mana, so that's gotta go. Now I can just get turn 1 here, or I can get Thought Seized, which is awkward. Yep, that's what my opponent's looking for. I lose the 3-ball. If I play Swamp, turn 2, I play Grim Monolith and have 4 mana for Karn. And then I don't commit to losing City of Traders. If my opponent discards me again and I play Swamp, I don't play Karn next turn. Whereas if I play City Grim Monolith, I guess like they just take the Karn, right? I'll go Swamp Pass. I feel like my hand's too slow this time. I think either my opponent going off or a second discard spell is somewhat likely right now. Cyrus can also just play out a bunch of his mana rocks this turn. Well, maybe not. Oh, no, we're just done. Okay. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is, in my opinion, the best Magic the Gathering website for hosting your deck lists online. One of my favorite features is that you can create your own custom tags for when you're deck building, So let's say you're building a commander deck and you want to know, hey, how many copy effects do I have? You can just create a tag and sort everything. And there's fun little hotkeys so that you can do this more quickly. So really, please consider checking them out if you are looking to tinker with deck lists online. Okay, so this is a reasonable opening hand as long as Ensnaring Bridge is good. So Gemstone, Caverns, pitches a Karn probably. So yeah. Exile 1 Karn. Opponent's having fun over there. Creature deck, creature deck, creature deck, creature deck. Flooded Strand. Fetch a Valk? No. No. I don't know. Like, an Ensnaring Bridge might stop an army of 4th Aerlingas or a Shark or something dumb at some point, so it might not do nothing. But this is not what I was hoping to see when I kept this hand. YOLO Karn? I'm into YOLO Karn. Probably going and getting liquid metal coating and trying to go the land destruction route. I mean, I'll take a look at everything that's there, but I'm pretty sure this is the highest upside play by a lot. So we know that before my opponents draw stuff, they don't likely... yes, cool. So opponents got Flooded Strand and Ponder in their deck. How do I sideboard? It's still possible that this is something like Show and Tell, and the Ensnaring Bridges are very, very good. I'm probably going to sideboard with a light touch and accept the fact that some portion of the time I have a bunch of bad cards in my deck. Like, Curse of Death's Hold is not necessarily going to be the strongest against a control deck list. I think I'm going to try to make room for some more creatures. Like maybe some Sholdrids or opposition agents just hedging against generic stuff. I'm going to get rid of the Pithing Needle. And opposition agent is good against both control and combo. I think I'm going to go up on those and adjust. Hands a keep. In theory, I can do some sort of like Chalice on 1, Chalice on 2 sort of nonsense. A little weird if I Dark Ritual into Chalice. It's also kind of weird. I think I'm going to keep the Dark Ritual for if this Chalice does not resolve. And just do this. I don't know. I don't know what to play against and around here. It is Days. Sure. So Days off basic island. Could be Show and Tell. Much less likely now. That's a curse. I think I just go for another Chalice immediately here, though. And throw this on 1. Could be a Delver deck that has a basic. Could be a, like, Sultai Beans deck. In which case, the Chalice is not amazing. I'm looking to play Grim Monolith next turn, and then a Curse the following turn. That's kind of conceptually where I'm at. Leyline is a Magic the Gathering card. It doesn't do a ton right now. Give me information, please. I've already seen this one. Show me something new. Okay. Second main phase hipster. Another basic island. Interesting. They fetched around opposition agent. I think I'm into the curse. Oh, we're in play. That's good. We also know that my opponent doesn't have a counterspell because they just, like, F6'd my turn. What are you doing over there? Third basic island. Understood. That's fine. So I can get Cruel Reality if I want to start clocking my opponent immediately. I still don't really know what I'm playing against. I think I'm going to get the Overwhelming Splendor accordingly. And just kind of play it safe. Like, is this a mono blue Delver deck? I'm fine jamming one of these into Daze. Doubt the Voidwalker doesn't matter. Like, mono blue Delver with, like, Murktides and the whale, whose name I forget. It's Spellbelly Whale. Ethereal Forager. We get the Curse of Death's Hold. Now my opponent never gets creatures. Okay, my opponent has told me they have Brazen Borrower in deck in chat, and they scoop it up. I have Mono Blue Delver? Question mark? Question mark? Question mark? Question mark? Sound off in the comments below if you think you know what they're playing. Okay, we have a turn 2 Goldfish. I just get to go Ancient Tomb, Grim Monolith, and then next turn I have 5 mana for Helm plus Helm activate. If that doesn't work, I've got Stone Cold nothing going on. So like Thoughtseize or a Counterspell or a Grief or whatever is really bad for me. But we would be okay versus, you know, say an initiative creature or a sticker goblin or whatever. That's fine. I still get to put my win condition in play off Grim Monolith, and I don't have to play around Daze right now. But I need this card to resolve very, 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 very much. Here we go. And I do believe that it is correct to just go for this over playing an Ensnaring Bridge and trying to prolong this game. Show me Force of Will or Force of Negation. I didn't actually want to see it. That was incredibly rude, opponent. So the good news is my Leyline of the Void is likely to be impactful. The bad news is I can't really cast any spells. We're probably playing against like a blue-black Scam deck, a blue-black Death Shadow deck, something in that general ballpark. Could technically be a Beans deck as well, I suppose. This is really good if it does resolve. If I can get to 4 mana to untap this, then Cruel Reality starts to be a meaningful card. Weird pause in draw step there. Straight into Bowmasters, which I don't have. Like, my opponent did a weird pause, like almost as if they had drawn a miracle. Okay, so maybe Beans. I don't care about the Thoughtseize that much. Like, my opponent will take the Ensnaring Bridge. I should check. Do I have like a Tormod's Crypt in sideboard? I don't. Well, I redrew a bridge. That's the good news. Bad news is 2 mana. And my opponent's a Wasteland deck. And my Urborg potentially fixes their mana as well. Although they're not too likely to need black most of the time. No shuffle on that Ponder. And there's the Beans. This is likely to be a long game where I don't do a lot of relevant game actions, and my opponent eventually finds a way through my BS. The good news is that common win conditions are likely off. I don't know that I fire off Dark Ritual just to play Ensnaring Bridge immediately. I'm willing to take a few points of damage if my opponent randomly has some sort of like Endurance Brazen Borrower type card. I guess not Endurance, they don't have green. Heyo. I'm gonna go ahead and play an Urza's Saga. This gives me something to do for a few turns. Makes my bridge a little awkward. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the turn. I might end up using a Dark Ritual at the end of my opponent's turn to untap a Grim Monolith. Yeah, that's fine. The Murderous Cut is terrible. Mystic Sanctuary is terrible. Brainstorm is the good card here. How do I want to play this game? I guess Murderous Cut draws a card. Let's split the Brainstorm from the fetch land and do this. Okay, so I don't get to see in chat. So my opponent took the Murderous Cut. Got it. I'll just pass turn. Yeah, my opponent has draw step stops set for some reason. Up the Beanstalk is fine. Murderous Cut now draws 2 when my opponent does it. I think I'm doing this. Let's untap that Monolith. The Dark Ritual is plus 2 mana, whereas the Monolith is plus 3 mana, just in case you're wondering why I did that. Sure. This is cool for later. And I'll just go ahead and pass the turn. That's a cycle, that's fine. I'm a little surprised it's a cycle. Like, that's a draw 5 that you're 1 land away from casting. Maybe they have enough gas in hand where It is just not necessary. I don't know their life. But let's make some dudes. Don't want to draw that. Going to continue to just get my value out of my Urza's Saga. And Pithing Needle that Delta, but it still taps for mana. Brainstone is a thing that I'm not really excited about. I think I'm just going to get a Mox Opal. This is 4 mana. I can play a Grim Monolith and then cast something else. It grows these constructs. I don't hate it. I don't love it either. I think I'm just going to attack for 4 and let this token die, and then we'll revisit things another turn or so down the line. I would love to use Grim Monolith to cast Cruel Reality. Yeah. It's dead. Yeah, I think I'll just pass turn. Why are we cycling these? I don't know, maybe they're about to discard and the land drop is necessary. Fatal Push is fine. The game was never about these Urza Saga construct tokens. The game is about decking my opponent. They've only got 30 cards left in library. We're halfway there, folks. Buckle the fuck up. My Metalcraft isn't on right now, which is a little annoying. So let's go 3 mana. Play a Grim Monolith. This turns on Metalcraft. Then I think I'm going to go ahead and drop an Ensnaring Bridge. See if my opponent cares about it. Their Force of Wills draw 2 cards. It's not like Ensnaring Bridge is that threatening, but it might be reasonable to just trade. There is a Daze. That is fine. I could now play a Curse of Death's Hold if I would like. I don't think I'm going to do that. I can use my Grim Monolith to untap my Grim Monolith. They don't teach you those lines in Magic School. Sure. Now I have a reason to try to resolve Curse of Death's Hold. That's fine. Okay. Opponent's got to buy you more beans. The mill my opponent out thing is becoming a little bit less of a joke now. Leovold's fine. I'll take 2. That's a-okay with me. Brainstone, quite bad now between those permanents. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, this target's for Leovold purposes. Right. Spell Pierce. Sure. Awkward. I'm going to just play a Brainstone to put another artifact into play in case that becomes relevant later. So I'm not in the best shape right now. At least that Bowmasters didn't happen the previous turn, because then I would not have even had an opportunity to try and remove this stuff. At this point, I need... that's interesting. It's unlikely to resolve, because Daze is live. How many Dazes are in exile right now? 1 Daze? Just 1. I don't know that I have time to not jam, though. So I'll attempt the Karn. I expect it to get dazed or forced or whatever. Yep, that's fine. But like with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage in play, like I just can't wait. And even resolving the Karn might not be good enough. Yeah, so this puts me to 1. I'm dead to a Bowmaster at any point. My opponent still has 1. They're probably playing the full playset or 3. Witherbloom Command will finish me off as well. That's fine. So my ley lines did some work in slowing my opponent down, keeping me from just getting wrecked by a Murktide. But I just kind of stumbled. Like, I had a very long time because of my ley line, but I just didn't have anything that could finish the job. I would like to get more threat dense if possible. I'm just going to get rid of Beseech versus the counter spells and try to bring in some amount of this stuff. I feel like my Urza Sagas are kind of bad. How's Chalice? Chalice probably isn't even that good. Yeah, let's try to increase my threat density here. Just board in 5 more creatures. Maybe keep one Chalice. Like it does stuff, but I'm always just less excited about Chalice versus blue green X decks because they usually have access to, your Abrupt Decay, Assassin trophies, all those sorts of cards, whatever's popular at any given moment. It's like I might see Boseiju out of this deck, for example. I'd almost rather Trinisphere than Chalice. Yeah, I'm going to keep this one. I think this is just floop opposition agent into play on turn 1 and hope it steals a game. Let's see. Opponent hates fun. Confirmed. Alright, we will pivot into an Urza's Saga hand then. Alright, I don't get Thought Seized, which is great. It's weird to play Urza Saga and immediately play an Ensnaring Bridge. So I guess I'm not going to do that. I just waste my mana, which I'm not too happy about, but hopefully the Urza Saga is enough of a distraction that my opponent has to kind of deal with. For sure. Alright, the beans are just established early, which I don't want to see. Urborg's not the greatest. I'm going to play Mox Opal so my construct can't get pinged by a Bowmaster. And then this does save me some life in the short term. Third land drop. Cool. I can make a token. The token gets destroyed. I lose the Mox Opal, which kind of sucks. Alright. Well, that's not bad. What am I doing with this curse? I can jam the curse into days. My opponent hasn't really cantrip. They've used one force. I think I'm jamming here. I think if I sit back on the Urza Saga plan, it just favors my opponent too much. Like, they just have time to set this up. I would rather start getting Cruel Reality online ASAP. Alright, cool. Again, my opponent can just answer this, right? Like, Boseiju would be a way to answer it without even casting a spell. Okay, that's a tapped Mystic Sanctuary because Bayou is not an island. Nice. So now the question is, do I get the Cruel Reality and start clocking, or do I set myself up to not be soft to their creatures? And I think I do that. Let's start with the Overwhelming Splendor that I could never possibly cast if I drew it. And go from there. I think I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4. And then playing Shouldered around days rather than making the Shouldered dazeable. Alright, fantastic. Now that I know Pernicious Deed is a thing, I maybe bring this Pithing Needle back in. That's a really important Pithing Needle target if the game goes really long. I probably go down like 1 piece of mana here. 1 mana is not going to do it. This is a mulligan. For a mono black deck, I sure am not good at casting black cards. I'm going to put Curse of Death's Hold back in my deck so that I can cast it. Both it and Douthie Voidwalker have black pips that are pretty awkward for me right now, though. Sure. Ensnaring Bridge while being the beatdown. Classic. Saga. I hate that this first construct token is likely to be Bowmasterable unless I waste Grim Monolith. Sure. The opponent has card advantage in play from the beginning of the game. That's not the best for me. If I cast Grim Monolith and then my opponent does something like Daze, I lose out on making the Urza Saga construct token in the first place. So I am going to go ahead and just not play the Grim Monolith, despite the fact that it helps me play around Bowmasters. Alright, no land drop from my opponent, which is good news in that my opponent is not developing mana, but is bad news in the fact that, like, my opponent has 7 bangers in hand. Yeah. Karn is not very good. So, I'll Urza Saga. I can Needle for the deed, or I can get something like a Mox Opal to get me actual black mana. I think I need to do that, despite how incredibly good Pernicious Deed would be against me right now. I can cast Karn. My opponent paused in a funny way. I kind of think they have days. I'm just going to pass the turn and hold up opposition agent. All right, we're chilling. I think I am fine with this. It makes it more likely that I can resolve the Karn on my turn. Yeah, that's fine. Leovold down the drain. I, as of right now, still have Metalcraft from Ox Opal, which is nice. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 mana, in theory. I think I am fine firing off Dark Ritual this turn. Let's do land drop, 4 mana. I think I Douthie first. Okay, so my opponent is literally just cycling that for a new card. That's fine. They do Force of Will, also fine. Now I'll Karn. Okay. Who is the beatdown? Probably not me. I'm going to play this into a daze. I don't care about it that much. My opponent might. Like, if my opponent dazes, it sets them back a decent amount. Otherwise, this is just one more thing they're going to have to answer before they can start swinging the game back in their favor. Sure. My life total is taking a beating, but I don't mind drawing another Karn. Getting a response. Sure. Is Karn resolving? Karn is resolving. I will go ahead and Karn minus. Yes. Second Ensnaring Bridge is pretty reasonable. I think I am just going to get Liquid Metal Coating, though. This is already playable around a daze, and it's something that can help keep my opponent off of the likes of Pernicious Deed for a turn cycle. At which point I've kind of got a real plan. That's brutal. Sure. Show me the Bowmaster as your last card? No. Okay, so my Karn is going to get attacked down to 1. My opponent could find a Bowmaster and ping Karn in my upkeep. Not anymore. So I'm going to get to destroy my opponent's black source and then hope that I draw something else reasonable. I guess I have some other lines. They're just a bit weirder. Mystic Sanctuary for Force of Vigor. Or Force of Will. Interesting. I can Karn plus on Liquid Metal Coating and keep Karn alive, but open myself up to my opponent's last card being a removal spell. I think that's where I'm at. I know my opponent has Force of Will. The last card is unknown. Okay, my opponent has Force of Will. I have perfect information here. I can get another Ensnaring Bridge if I would like. I also can untap Grim Monolith if I would like. I don't think I need to do that. Urborg. I think I'm into the land destruction here. Let's target the Underground Sea. Yeah, sure. I know your last card is Force of Will, so it doesn't matter. Get out. I think I'm playing this, despite some awkwardness in taking my opponent off of black mana specifically. So let's untap that and call it a turn. I'll let my opponent attack Karn back down to 1, and then I can kind of repeat the same line that I did previously. Although I guess I can be plussing on the Grim Monolith now, which is slightly better. Okay, so opponent has Force of Will as their last card. I think this is all fine. So let's plus on the trop. Float your mana, blow up your land. I go to a different phase, play land. All these for black, 4, 5. Curse, target you. I am fine losing the Karn. This curse sets me up for a very quick win. If my opponent loses this one, it's because they put Force of Will into their hand with Mystic Sanctuary instead of the Force of Vigor, which I think was much, much, much stronger. Bye, Karn. Okay. Since I am at 6 life, I am going to go ahead and clear the board with Curse of Misfortunes here. Oh, that's awkward. I'm still probably doing it. This puts me to 5. Yeah, this clears 2 creatures out. Lol. Anyway, nice Force of Will. And we win the match after a hell of a slog. We're going to end up positive in this league, which I was not expecting. All right. Ancient Tomb, Grim Monolith, 3 mana, play Ensnaring Bridge, start with Leyline of the Void in play. Have no access to black mana, no ability to cast whatever portion of my deck is actually black. I think I know Sir this hand. Yikes. And this one kind of has the opposite problem where it has no acceleration. Like, other than a blind Pithing Needle, I can't cast any cards in this hand. We've got to go to 5. Thanks, deck. Very cool. The 4-card Ensnaring Bridge wins somehow hand. 1, 2, 3, 4? We've got a plan. I'm not going to say that it's going to work, but we at least have a plan. Let's just draw another Dark Ritual. My opponent just plays an elf and we win. How about it? Don't fetch a blue thing. Damn it. Well, this is a good news, bad news situation. Like, my opponent might have a counterspell. But even if this doesn't work, I did just shut off their graveyard, meaning that I maybe have some time. I mean, you gotta jam once you're on 4 cards, right? But that's okay. So the way we lose this game now is to Stoneforge for Kaldra or Urza's Saga. I mean, we can technically lose to like a Narcomoeba beat with a Shuko or whatever, but the whole Cephalid Illusionist bring back Thassa's Oracle combo is currently offline. Thank you, deck. Very cool. Yep. No, that's how we lose. So, oh, they've gotten a Shuko, which probably just means that they have a Kaldra in hand already. That's incredibly awkward. I need to keep this land in play to play an Ensnaring Bridge. Yeah, I know. Move your equipment. I get bashed for 6. I don't have a lot of time here. This puts me to 14. An opponent's holding up mana. Am I playing around Daze? Like, Daze is in their deck. They've used one already. So the issue with playing around Daze is that I lose my city. And if I lose my city, I can't play future Grim Monoliths, Ensnaring Bridges, Elms, and Karns very easily. And my opponent can attack me for 2 to 3 points of damage with a Stoneforge Mystic every turn, and they will have like 2 Shukos that they can shuffle around. So I think I don't play around Daze, and sometimes I just lose. I think I'm willing to take a little bit of damage here. One issue about relying on this sort of stuff, though, is that my opponent's deck can have Prismatic Ending and Teferi, which just goes and gets this sort of stuff out of the way. And my prison plan is not really reliable. New Stoneforge, sure. And then they're going to drop the Shuko. Sure. Okay, I mean, this is why we didn't play that stuff out. Or, like, why I didn't drop the Urza Saga last turn. Show me a counterspell? No. Alright. Let's see if we manage to steal this one. Hot damn. I don't know that we deserved that, but we got it. So I've got some options. Torpor Orb is really good. It stops both my opponent comboing off with Thassa's Oracle and Stoneforge Mystic finding Kaldra. This is a big one. And then this stuff is respectable as well. I don't think I like Brainstone. I think Beseech the Mirror gets stuck in my hand a lot for Ensnaring Bridge purposes. My mana base doesn't really support black, black, black. And things get a little weirder from there. I have mixed feelings about Karn. I think I'm going to keep them. Hate sideboarding against Breakfast, because it's usually the sort of deck where if you respect the combo too much, you die to the fair stuff, and vice versa. I think I can take out Karn and play some of this stuff, or leave Karn. I think Karn is worse against the combo than Opposition Agent by a little bit, but better against the mid-range portion of the deck by a lot. This one's awkward. Double Urborg's pretty bad. I might just keep this anyway. It starts with a Leyline in play, and then can play either a Torpor Orb or a Chalice early on. I think I'm going to keep this and hope that I draw some reasonable mana as a follow-up. It's pretty hateful. Just fetching around Opposition Agent. Oh shit, okay. Yeah, let's see where this goes. This is 3 mana, 5 mana, which allows me to do 2 of these cards around days. I think I'm going to start with the Chalice on 1, and then follow up with the Torpor Orb. This just, like, stops brainstorming in response. Both of those just resolved when my opponent was on the play, and they didn't take a turn 1 play. That makes me kind of nervous that my opponent is just going to, like, flop some sort of Serenity type card. Fuck. God damn it. Into play. Unhappy Phil noises are unhappy. God, that's frustrating. You even have to read up and brainstorm too. Grumble, 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 grumble. Yeah. Well. Alright. Play Pithing Needle. And am I naming Shuko? Or am I just naming this Urza Saga? Have the Ensnaring Bridge if the Ensnaring Bridge resolves. It's not guaranteed to resolve. Urza Saga. Naming Urza Saga is the thing that prolongs the game for the longest amount of time. I think I should name Shuko, though. Now, my opponent can still, just bounce this out of play, remove this, whatever. But here's to hoping Ensnaring Bridge does something meaningful. Sure, that's fine. So opponent's got Force of Will if they're playing that out. I don't think I jam Ensnaring Bridge immediately. I'm going to try to shut off future cantrips. Daze is fine. I'm not giving up Urborg to play around that. And taking a Daze this turn so that Ensnaring Bridge is more likely to resolve next turn is kind of a big deal. So these will be 3/3s, then 4/4s. Yep, this is all expected. I really need this Ensnaring Bridge to resolve, and I would strongly prefer to draw another land, because I'm about to lose the Urza Saga. Thank you. What, Mox Opal, probably? I can play the bridge around Daze if I take Lotus Petal. But Mox Opal, I think, is too important. I have a bunch of expensive cards that I am going to need to play, so I think I am going to risk another Daze here to set my mana up to be able to play 4-drops. It is Force of Will. So I've got very little agency left in this game. I can top deck another bridge to be alive, but all my curse-related stuff is just going to be too slow. Okay, Illusionist is in play, and I am dead on board. GG's. So, now that I know that my opponent is specifically packing Serenity, and that card beats my deck very hard, I might want to hedge against it by doing something like getting rid of Chalice of the Void, despite the fact that I am on the play. Can bring in 3 opposition agents to get better against Stoneforge Mystic, which I think is what I'm doing. Like, this gives me Dark Ritual opposition agent as a thing my deck is capable of doing, slightly improving opening hands. Yeah, this is fine. Maybe won't go so far as good, but it's fine. I get to start with the Leyline in play to make the combo worse, and then I get to drop Opposition Agent. Daze is potentially a thing. I don't know how much I care. Like, I don't have guaranteed land. So I think I'm just firing this off and not giving my opponent more time to draw tutors. But this hand is a great example of why I am not digging this deck. Like, I just can't cast most of the cards in my hand, right? Like, I don't have double black pips. Oh, no land for my opponent. They are brainstorm locked, which means this Karn is real good if it resolves. Now, they've got to have something if they don't have lands, right? Or maybe not. All right. Karn minus. Yes. So I've got a choice. I can attempt to just win the game, or I can attempt to blow up my opponent's land and then win the game later, which I think is what I am interested in. I'm going to grab the coding. Yep. So they're fully brainstorm locked, and this is going to resolve. If my opponent had a counterspell, they would have left it in hand, right? So plus on that. And destroy. I'll call it a turn, and then I will win with a helm in the not too distant future. So we somehow 4-1'd with this deck. So I came out swinging for curses in the intro, and then we 4-1'd. We had an 80% win rate today. So where does that leave me in regards to this deck? I think I'm not happy with this one. And like sometimes you 4-1 or 5-0 a league and you still have to say, like, I don't think the deck was good. I think I got lucky, which I legitimately believe is what happened today. In evaluating this deck, let's start here. And for the purposes of this, I'm going to count Gemstone Cavern as a colorless land, because it is colorless anytime it's not in your opener. And it's also play draw dependent. So like we're going to count this as a colorless source. Literally 50% of my mana production from my lands is colorless. Beyond that, I have multiple legendary black producing lands. And what this means is anything that has more than one black pip in it is incredibly difficult to cast. Especially considering that a lot of the times the Dark Ritual is going to be used to power out something like a Chalice of the Void or Karn, which can be strong early plays, meaning that I don't get to use them for the Voidwalker afterwards. And Besiege the Mirror is basically only playable off a Dark Ritual in this deck. That's a slight exaggeration, but is probably practically true. I don't feel great about the mana base in general, primarily because I think we're a really bad Urza Saga deck. And I love Urza Saga. Like, I shove this thing in anything. But the Urza Saga package that we had was really weak, and I boarded out the Brainstone and or the Pithing Needle in many of my rounds today. In addition to that, we saw our own Urza Saga tokens having tension with Ensnaring Bridge. So that was really awkward. Now, don't get me wrong, we still got there. But like Ensnaring Bridge is supposed to add to the artifact count for things like Mox Opal and Urza Saga token sizes, but then your tokens get outside of range of Ensnaring Bridge very quickly. And if you play an Ensnaring Bridge out early, in hopes of setting up for later, like using your mana while you can use your mana, and then you top deck an Urza Saga, like you lose so much ground. In current Legacy, with decks like Sultai Beans running around that just try to finish the game with something like a Murktide Regent, playing out an Ensnaring Bridge just while you think you have a window to resolve it to make the Murktides worse is really reasonable. But Saga tokens are one of the ways that I would primarily expect to kill an opponent like that. So it leaves you in weird design space. I also found myself light on mana, often having 4 drops and beyond stuck in hand. So in addition to not having enough colored mana, the deck might not have enough mana, just full stop. So a lot of times these decks end up being about 50% mana, which is true of this deck. But a lot of this is temporary mana in the form of the Dark Rituals and Grim Monoliths and Lotus Petals. Without Chrome Mox here, we don't necessarily have consistent access to higher amounts of mana. So I can drop something like an Ensnaring Bridge and then get, Leylines, Karns, Curses stuck in my hand. And it's rough if that happens. So Curses was a deck that I kind of helped put on the map. Reapel Cheap was kind of in my Discord, and I talked with them quite a bit about tuning this deck. And I played some of the really early versions that were bad. That also had, it's like a Sorin that like lets you put vampires into play, and it was like also trying to cheat vampires into play. But I think this is one of those times where like I kind of just have to let the deck die, unfortunately. Legacy is so strong, so fast right now that I don't think this deck keeps up on average. And given the clunkiness of this deck, I don't know that I can recommend this to someone for a competitive event in good faith. Now, if you're looking to show up to your FNM and have a fucking blast, like yeah, this one will get a thumbs up. But I think if you are playing a highly competitive event, you're going to find yourself frustrated with this deck. That being said, if you do need some cards for it, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your next order. And folks, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya.